How many of you have seen facts and statistics like these appear before you? How many? Right. That should have been a rhetorical question because I'm sure all of us with access to internet have. All these posts filled to the brim with numbers and words are being thrown at us all the time. And I'm sure it's not going to change in the future. Inequality, or more specifically economic inequality, is one of the largest or prominent issues in the world today. It's a global issue. Economic systems, businesses, profits, all of these are human-established systems. Systems that we as humans have created for our own convenience. So, based on this statement, how many of you agree with me that issues pertaining to inequality or economic inequality are in some ways or another our own result, the result of our own human nature? How many of you think that? Right. So we can unanimously agree that we agree to be the root of more than half the problems in the world today. Great. But what if I say that the roots grow deeper? Very economic-friendly and useful solutions, such as policy changes or workplace law reforms, have been put into place to curb this problem. So why is it still here? Why am I still talking about inequality today, in 2019? Why is it still an issue? Can't we just cut it out? Can't we just distribute our wealth equally to the less fortunate and just end it? Would you do it? No, right? So why can't we make this decision? What is the very human reason we can't make this decision? So I've categorized two reasons or two factors that really govern this decision. The first one being future economic prospects. When we make a life-changing decision, we always think of our self-interest. We always think of the future, how it's going to impact us. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about our human nature that is the second reason. I'm going to talk about how our human nature has such a profounding impact on such a broad system. Now, we can classify the study of human nature into psychology. A detailed study into human nature can be called psychology. So, what if we call a detailed study into the impact of human nature in this decision that we're making, the psychology of inequality? Psychologists over the years have studied and categorized a series of laws that define our behavior as it is. And these are just 4 of many that interconnect with one another that ultimately lead to the explanation that I'm going to give you for why we can't take that step. The first one being the Law of Repression. All of our friends, families, and acquaintances, we can all agree that they're friendly, pleasant, and accepting. But sometimes we glimpse a rarer sight. Their behavior contradicts what we've normally known them to be. It could be bursts of energy. It could be an unexpected comment about us. It could be a rash decision they just made. Or it could just be that they spoke about you behind closed doors and you didn't know about it. In all, they're not so friendly, accepting, and welcoming anymore. So what we experience in these snippets is what Swiss psychologist Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow encompasses all those feelings and qualities within us that we try to repress, suppress about ourselves. It's those qualities that we do not like. It's those negative qualities. And within these moments, that shadow comes out. When inequality first came to be an issue that needed to be addressed, it was everywhere, because we had just realized how much wrong there was in the society. And we wanted to make it right because we realized that it might be us. We might be the cause of this issue. Because we realized how wrong we were, we wanted to make it right. So then we over-idealized it. And it became a platitude of sorts. But this behavior, to really relate it to you, I want you to imagine this. Close your eyes and raise your hands if you've only felt or imagined the following at least once. Close your eyes. How many of you here have, at least once in your life, seen someone become successful, and you wished that it was you? Okay. Second question. How many of you participated in gossip or rumors? However tiny scale that is. Okay. The third and last one. How many of you were jealous of a sibling that was born because you thought that they would be getting all the attention from the family? I'm sure all of us have, all of us siblings have. Anyway, now look around you and you can tell that it's not just one person that feels this negative feeling. It's within us. It's within human nature that we feel jealous or we feel these negative feelings. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. Now this is one of the most classic examples of where we can see this behavior. Dr. Jekyll was a scientist who idealized the goodness in our society. He was the epitome of goodness, obviously. He creates a serum and uses it upon himself to create Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde proceeds to indulge himself in behaviors, sensual behaviors, that otherwise Dr. Jekyll would oppose. Now, Mr. Hyde is Dr. Jekyll's shadow. And as he said it, his devil had been long caged and it came out roaring. So the longer we keep this feeling within us caged, the more in force it's going to show itself. And this is exactly what happened when inequality first came to be an issue. The second law is the law of role-playing. So as I discussed, that we try to hide our deepest, darkest sides. We try to hide our personality. In doing so, we did what's called putting on a front, a social front. It's what's called putting on a mask. Now this is when we try to put on a front to ourselves that the society likes, that it approves, because otherwise they would not like us. Because otherwise we would be unpleasant. And so we take this as an alternative. We make this our defense in vulnerable moments. And we use this to hide, and we use this human tendency to hide our dark secrets, or our dark personalities. And the third one is the law of grandiosity. So when we realize that we have gotten over, we need to change inequality and we need to work towards it, we realize that we've participated in a lot of things, such as creating campaigns or supporting endless causes for equality. And in doing so, the society has praised us because they realized we did so good. We were supporting so many causes. So this is when we fall prey to the law of grandiosity. We realize people are praising us, so we must have something more than them. We must be more sympathetic. We must have that more. So therefore, we think of ourselves as superior. The law of grandiosity basically tells us that the humans have a tendency to feel superior than others. And when this happens, we easily fall prey to the last one, which is the law of envy. Now, how this works is that when you realize you have something in greater quantity, you become grandiose. But then, what happens is you realize that there's so many other people around you that are doing the exact same thing. You start to notice holes. And you start to think, what makes them so good as me? And so, we fall prey to the law of envy. We start to compare ourselves. We start to say, why are they as good as me? Right? So now, as we compare ourselves to others, this is where money comes in. It's a materialistic value that we associate with ourselves and others. Rachel Sherman is a sociologist in the New School. She studies psychology and sociology. In her interviews with wealthy families, she comes to discover two things. One is that wealthy are underreporting their earnings, whereas these are their supposed earnings. The second finding she makes is that wealthy prefer not to think of themselves that way. A woman who has an apartment overlooking the Hudson, a second home in the Hamptons, and yearly income of more than $2 million thinks of herself as middle class. This is shocking for me, I don't know about you, but she thinks of herself as less compared to others. And as she would have said it, no matter how much we have, we always think that others have 100 times more than that. We are naturally compelled to compare ourselves to others. And that's in human nature. Although for some of us, it can be a spur to excel in our field or study or work, for others, it can be dangerous. This feeling of comparison also creates a sense of conflict within us. Conflict that we don't have enough. So why should we give what we already have away? And this is one of the most fundamental reasons why we cannot commit to that decision. This is one of the most primary reasons why we can't commit to thinking about equal. And in that moment that we think this becomes our definition of equal. Some can call this selfish, or others could just call it self-preservation. Selfish in itself is not a very negative feeling, but where we apply it makes it one. And it's really obvious that in this case of inequality, what we experience is selfishness. But when selfishness takes over, there is no way that we're able to overcome this feeling and really do what we need to do, because there is no way that here, none of us here are able to ignore the fact that our self-interest is at stake and really help the others, because we can't help ourselves in that moment. So, in all, when we first experience inequality, we realize that our deepest, darkest sides are the reasons for why this still exists. And then that leads to how we hide these dark sides, how we play the social front to hide what we really feel. That leads to the law of grandiosity, when people tell us how much we're doing good, and we say that we're superior than others. And the last law is when we feel ourselves compared to others. And this ultimately leads to our inability to think for all but one. So, self-preservation or selfishness is not a negative feeling. Let me just point that out. And I'd like to say that the points reiterated here are really controversial to a high degree. But we can also say that it's undeniable that our human nature is everywhere. It's in everything that we do, and even this. And it's also true that talking about distributing our wealth is a very unrealistic and really disturbing thought. But why do you think that is? It's because of our human nature. Because who's to say that in some parallel universe there isn't equal income? But then again, who's to say that there is a parallel universe anyway? But that's beside the point. What I'm trying to say is that the feelings that we have are normal, and it's part of what we are. It's part of our human nature. And so I'm saying, I'm reiterating that we should learn our human nature and really try to understand how it impacts our feelings, our emotions, and ultimately our decisions that we take, and how this impacts our own surroundings. If we learn how to do that, we will learn to be more comfortable in our own skin, and we'll be able to curb a lot of issues more rationally. Being sympathetic is in our nature, and I'm asking you to be more sympathetic. The act of giving is in our nature, so I'm asking you to give a small part, even if it's just a tiny bit of your total achievements. Because even that small part of it is equal to a lot more, and more than even half of your total achievements for people in these areas. And ultimately, before long, we won't even realize that we have helped so many people. We would have helped millions of people achieve their own dreams. Dreams that we are living. Dreams that you are living. Dreams that I'm living at this moment, right here on this stage. But all we have to do is be open to it and be human. Thank you.